Nemesis and the Vault of Lost Time, a First Chapter Friday read-aloud video and author interview with Amanda Zieba the Word Nerd and author PJ Davis. Today as you listen, follow along. Watch for the story quote that will appear on screen. Write it down word by word and then follow the instructions given to you by your teacher. Make sure you stay all the way to the end to see if you've written it down correctly. Real quick before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Miss Costello's students at Van Cleve Elementary in Troy, Ohio. I'm so glad you guys are here today and hope you love this story. Hi, my name is Amanda Zieba. Welcome to my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd, and another First Chapter Friday video. This week we're going to be reading Nemesis and the Vault of Lost Time by author PJ Davis. Now, if you are a person who loves the Rick Riordan mythology adventure series, you're gonna love this one. If you are kind of a high flyer with lots of vocabulary words in your head and people kind of be like, seriously, what does that word even mean? You are going to love this book. If you are a person who says, what if, and then come up with some wild scenario, you are going to love this book. I'm going to read you the back so you know a little bit more about it. Then I'm going to read you the first chapter, and then we're going to go and have a conversation with the author, PJ. So here's what this story is about. Substance? What substance? Asks 13-year-old Max Kellerman. Why, time itself, exclaims the strange professor who Max meets in the back of his uncle's bookstore. In fact, he says, time is being sucked out of every living person by invisible thieves and stored away in a deep, dark netherworld. Could the professor possibly be right? Or just plain crazy? It depends on whether Max can unravel the mysterious clues in the tattered manuscript the professor leaves behind. With the help of his best friends Derek and Samantha, Max begins a quest to find this dark realm and to discover its hidden secrets. But with the time ticking and the professor gone missing, Max uncovers the truth he never thought possible. Max must unravel the mysteries of Nemesis to save not just his world, but the very element, time itself. So, let us dive into Nemesis and the Vault of Lost Time. You guys are going to love this story. Chapter 1. Max, snap out of it. You're spacing out again. The booming voice shocked Max into action. He bolted upright in his seat, trying to focus on the face looming in front of him. Beady black pupils probed him like a giant insect inspecting its prey. For a moment, it seemed as if it were only a familiar nightmare until Miss Stolte boomed again. Perhaps if you would quit staring out the window, sniffling and sneezing, drifting off in daydreaming, you might actually find time to complete your exam, like the rest of class. Muffled laughter echoed around the room. Max eyed the smirking faces and cringed. It wasn't as if he had committed a crime. All he had done was drift off for a minute during the test. It's a shame, Mr. Kellerman, Ms. Stolte said, frowning, her fleshy cheeks flapping back and forth. Nearly every question you answer is correct. Now, if you could stop zoning out long enough to finish the entire test, you might actually live up to your potential. After all, it is your midterm. Miss Stolte snatched Max's exam before he could even remove his pencil, scoring a dark diagonal slash across the page as if to underscore his failing. Bzzz. The sound of the bell ended the longest fourth period in history. We'll discuss this later, Stolte warned. Hey, nice work there, Kellerman. Max groaned inwardly, just the sort of response he'd expect from Kyle Saunders, the only seventh grader with a driver's license. But hey, at least you didn't drool down your sleeve like last week. Ignore him. He's a total butthead, came the voice from the desk behind Max. It was Sam, his fifth period lab partner. She gave a sympathetic nod as she passed by, carefully avoiding the crush of students pushing and elbowing their way through the door. Miss Stolte was the last to exit, head tilted back, nose high, making a point to flip the lights off as if nobody remained in the room. Tiny specks of dust floated aimlessly in a shaft of late afternoon light. Max breathed a deep sigh and gathered up his books, backpack, and a large collection of tightly wadded tissues strewn about his desktop. Okay, so maybe I do drift off, and maybe I do space out at times, but sneezing and sniffling, how does that qualify as wasting time? And even so, I can't help the sneezing part. Max could back up his statement with hard facts. He was a walking Wikipedia of obscure facts that he hoped would pay off someday when asked the final question on a TV game show of his choosing. So, Mr. Kellerman, The game host would say, "You hail from Providence, Rhode Island, lucky town." Max would nod politely. "For $10 million, approximately what percentage of the Earth's population sneezes when looking into direct sunlight?" Max would cock his head and pause for a moment as the studio audience leaned forward in suspense. Then he would calmly and confidently reply, "Sir, that would have to be 25 to 33%. The surprised yet insincere game show host would turn to the audience and declare, "Well, that's correct, young man." The crowd would gasp, clapping wildly at Max's vast reservoir of knowledge, and so as not to appear outdone, the host would read from his note card and ask, "I don't suppose you know what causes this reaction, do you?" "Actually, I do," Max would reply with attractive modesty. "It's because some people have nerve endings in their noses that are connected to the nerves in their eyes in such a way that causes them, no, actually makes them sneeze." The host's mouth would then gape open in amazement, and the crowd would erupt in cheers. Miss Stolte would, of course, be the first to announce the news. "I always knew Max had it in him. Such an exceptionally bright young man," she would say. "I always said he had potential," and blah, 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 it would go, with everyone nodding in agreement that Max had finally discovered an actual use for his potential. But for now, that wasn't so. Max slipped out of the classroom door and into a moving wall of bodies. Music blared everywhere, locker doors slammed shut, and shouts bounced about the hallway. An unmanned skateboard whizzes past, nearly wiping out two other students as they ran to beat the next bell. Max heard as well, even though band was his next subject. Mr. Scottsburg wouldn't care if he was late, since he was rarely on time himself. Max pushed against the double doors that led into the vast, windowless music room and worked his way through the tiers of outstretched legs, untied shoes, and fallen music stands. Finding his usual seat in the wind section, he slid his overstuffed backpack under his chair and opened his alto saxophone case. Whack! Max felt an open-handed smack on the back. "You were so busted!" Derek, his best friend, laughed. "It's not that funny," Max grumbled as he slipped the strap of his trusty saxophone around his neck. "And besides, I'll still make an 85% anyways and get at least a B minus. Can you match that, Mr. Can I study with you the night before the test?" "Hey, I had other options," Derek insisted. "I just wanted to help you brush up. Anyway, what's with the sneezing fit and the dazed look in class? You are in serious need of sleep. Even Sam noticed it, dude, and she sits behind you." Max bit down on his bottom lip, replaying the event in his mind. "It could be that photo sneeze reflex, what some people call the Chu syndrome, that genetic thing I told you about when the sunlight stimulates the nerve endings in the nose, making you sneeze, or it could just be allergies, which could explain the tiredness, and you know how that makes Mr. Stolte go crazy." "Max," Derek interrupted, looking bewildered. "You're not following this, are you?" Max asked. "Actually, no, not a word." "Okay, how to put this?" Max paused to collect his thoughts. "Derek, do you ever feel like you're going right along and then suddenly your brain freezes? Like it's on pause? Sort of like a rainbow wheel on a computer just spinning but going nowhere?" "What?" Derek questioned, one eyebrow raised slightly higher in disbelief. No? Really? Because sometimes I get this kind of like glitchy feeling, like time stops for a minute and then suddenly starts up again. Like today, I'm taking that test 1 minute and then suddenly everyone's staring and Miss Stolte pops up out of nowhere. Not sure how that just happens." "Could be just that your noodle is cooked," Derek replied. "It's like eating pizza and Twinkies and then playing video games all night. It leaves you with a totally zoned out feeling." Derek bit down hard on a Granny Smith apple he had scavenged from his backpack, spraying a perfect arc of apple juice across Max's instrument case, while hitting Max in one eye. Max winced, shaking his head. Derek had the unusual knack of transforming a simple question into a baffling answer. What's more, every response seemed to involve food, a subject never far from Derek's mind. But to Max that wasn't important. "Got a question," said Max. "You've known me since second grade. How many times in the last 5 years have I ever copped a sugar buzz? I just don't buy your theory." "Well, how about buying this?" Derek pulled his chair alongside Max's, swung the shiny bell of his new trombone up to Max's left ear, and gave it a blast. "Hey, that ear has to last me a lifetime!" Max's voice echoed inside his head. Derek gave Max one more blast for effect. "Okay, man, so you're freaked out because you've done some weird sneeze disorder and you tend to zone out in class. Big deal. And sure, you get busted now and then for going comatose or whatever, and you do, but practically everyone does it once in a while. So ease up on yourself, man. Max sighed. I guess you're right, but it's happening a lot lately, and I just can't seem to stop it. And that's where we're gonna stop now. But if you want to continue reading Nemesis and the Vault of Lost Time and find out what's happening to Max and these sneezes and his zoning out and get a perhaps supernatural answer to those questions, definitely pick up a copy and continue reading. But for right now, we are going to move on to our interview with author PJ Davis. Hello, readers. We are in for a treat today because we are here with PJ Davis, author of our First Chapter Friday book, Nemesis and the Lost Vault of Time. PJ, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. It's great to be here. Super excited.
I am super excited. I love this book, and it made me think of lots of questions. So I am just going to dive right in with those. And the first question, one that I often like to ask, is what was the story spark or the story seedling for this particular story?
So, great question. I knew it was coming because you, you prompted me on this one, and I still don't have a clear answer for you. I wish I did. So, where do ideas come from before ideas are born? Where does your next thought come from before you think it?
Hmm.
Right? So it comes from the unknown, and it's something that a lot of people have spent time looking at. And it's part of the reason I wrote this book. This book is about an exploration of the unknown. So this idea, the short answer, it just popped in my head. This thought, and it was just like like you said, it was very well put, Amanda. It's a spark, and I think all of us have inside us this spark of curiosity. And the book is about following that spark, not ignoring it, not tamping it down, but just looking at it, fostering it, and seeing kind of where it goes. It's your muse, and maybe that's a concept the kids aren't familiar with. But your muse is that thing you entertain, you look at, you ask questions about, and you begin to follow it. And that's what the story is, following that.
And I think that as an author, it's a really important skill to hone to pay attention when you have those sparks, when you
Yes.
have those things that make you go, I wonder about this. And I'm not going to follow too far down that trail because later on I have a question about questions. So we'll get there.
Okay. All right. All
My
right.
second question is that this book has amazing vocabulary. Just like some really interesting word choices, some high level word choices that I think it will prompt them to like perhaps even reread the sentence to try to figure out what that word means.
Yeah.
And as a word nerd, I love great word choice. So I'm curious, um, have you always had a large vocabulary, like even as a kid, or is this something that you really worked hard to build up?
Well, no, it was natural. I'm a little verbose, so there's another word. I tend to like to speak and express myself. Language is the medium to which we communicate and form relationships. So the reason I'm mesmerized, there we go, by language is that language is a tool set. And as you grow up and you go into the world, you need tools. So think about it. You probably all have parents or maybe those grandparents, and I'm that age, that guy, where you go out in their garage and they have a chest full of what?
Cool.
Tools, right? Grandpa, why do you need so many tools? Because every tool fits a certain job. Now,
Hmm.
if you don't develop a vocabulary, you'll get by. You'll be that person that has a hammer and a saw. And when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. All you want to do is hit it. And if you have a saw, all you want to do is cut everything. But if you have all these tools and every word, every idea is a little bit of a different tool, you can apply those in every situation so that it does a little bit more of what you want it to do.
I love that analogy, and I'm such a visual person, so I'm in my head thinking about perhaps my garage in a different way than I thought about it
Yes,
before. So,
right.
great explanation, great. And this might date me a little bit, but I think about two of my favorite songwriters,
Yeah,
completely different genres. One would be Eminem, and one would be Taylor Swift. And I love them for their word choice.
yeah,
Somebody who is clever and who makes words do
yeah,
things that other
yeah.
people don't do. So great, great, thanks.
Absolutely.
Okay, switching gears a little bit. This book is the first in a series.
Yes.
And so I'm curious if you have tips for kids who are listening, who perhaps want to be writers and want to write a series. Because
Yeah.
oftentimes when I talk to kids and they're like, "Oh, I want to be a writer," and I'm writing the first book in a series, and I'm like, "Gosh, that is ambitious!" Like to
Yeah.
already know there's going to be more. But what tips do you have for someone who's interested in writing a series?
Well, that's a great question because I'm just now in book two, and book two, which I've started, matter of fact, this week, I've kind of rolled up my sleeves, finally getting to it. Follows a little bit of what happens and kind of so in a series, the second, third, and fourth book expand the universe that you've created, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
have to have a sense of what is this universe, what is this world, what are these characters that I'm creating. How that comes about, I think, is different with every writer. Some people, they call them, have you ever heard of this one? Planners and pansters.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I am guilty of being a panster. So a panster, it flies by the seat of their pants. It's
Yep.
that we talked about. You get the spark. So I have the ADHD attention of a closely bred Siamese cat. I'm like, so when you follow that, you can follow where this story goes. The benefit of that is the story is much more organic. In this world of AI, it doesn't sound planned out and predictable. It's broken, it's human, it's organic, it's complicated. The downside of just writing what's in your heart is you have to edit it a lot more. I'm going to use the sandpaper analogy. That first pass is going to be a hot mess. And so you have to go back and work it and rework it and kind of see where this story was going. Maybe you went off on a side tangent,
Hmm.
side route, and now you got to clean it up. If you kind of say, I have this idea and it's about this world and I can see it coming in three parts and I can kind of see, then you're a planner. And no problem with that. But you kind of see the end from the beginning and you work backwards. You know where you're going to go, you know where you're starting, you know where you're going to end, and now it's just a matter of filling that story arc. How do I take
Hmm.
it from here? It might kind of go up and down through the series, but how do I then take it through these different steps to eventually arrive here?
Yeah. That reminds me, I'm going to grab another book as you were talking. It reminded me of Gwendolyn Van Dranen's book, Hope in the Mail, and she talks about writing the Sammy Keys series, and she talks about milestones, how like
There you
she's got
go.
these
There you go.
milestones along on that road, kind of like you were talking about, and then
Mhm.
she has to figure out how am I get from here to here. And how I do that is totally pantsing. But
Right,
I know that I've
right,
planned out these milestones. So
right, right,
um great,
right.
great advice. Thank you. Sorry, I keep forgetting what my questions are.
I will add a
Oh,
caveat to that, though. I think when
yeah.
you're a panster, the beauty of it is this: write yourself into a problem that you cannot figure the solution to. Write yourself because what it'll do is it will build that suspense. So I got a point in this book where I put it down and I go, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I literally don't know. My character has no superpowers,
Yeah.
right? But he lives in a supernatural world. So, how does a human take on a supernatural challenge? And I
Mhm.
did not have the answer for that. But I wrote myself into that corner and then had to let the story find its way out. And that to me is real. That's where the genius really comes. I don't even know if it's from us, but when we reach deeper, we'll get a deeper story with a deeper meaning out of that situation. Does that make sense?
That is incredible advice, and I've never heard that before of someone saying, "I'm gonna write till I'm gonna write myself into a corner." Like usually they're like, "Don't write yourself into a
Write
corner."
yourself to a cliff.
Oh my gosh.
Go 60 miles an hour at that cliff and then figure out how you're not gonna perish. Right.
I love that advice. Okay, I'm gonna take that advice for myself. I love that idea. Um, Switching gears a bit again,
Yeah.
writing is not your full-time novel
No,
writing is not your
no.
full-time job. You have another day job, much like many authors do, and you call it the namer of things. And
Yeah.
so I am intrigued by that job title. I'm curious how much writing you get to do in your job as namer of things. So, and maybe how you got to there to novel writing. I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Sure, sure. So I ran an advertising agency where I was paid to write commercials and I did a lot of writing. And I didn't like it because I was just selling people things and I'm more of a storyteller. And a
Hmm.
lot of people want you to advertise and they don't have their story straight. And so I was always fixing people's stories. Well, if I'm going to advertise that your name doesn't make sense, your tagline doesn't match with it, let me fix it. I got to be such a fixer of stories that I became a namer of things. Now, hear the difference? Fixer of stories, namer of things. So there's cadence, there's beauty in language, right? And so people were very intrigued and wanted to say, what if I just hired you then to create names for my company so we get it right in the first place? I told this one guy, do you know Bruce Colville, who the
Yeah.
alien? So
My
Bruce,
teacher's an alien? Yeah.
yeah, so I know Bruce a little bit, and met him, and he was very jealous of me, which I had no idea why a man like of that stature would ever be jealous, because he said, "You write one-word novels, you write." So he had this insight, and I thought it was hilarious because he has to write, 80,000 words, and I read a one word. I wish it was that easy. So I create one-word novels. It's a condensation, distillation, like maple syrup of
Hmm.
what something is. You have to say a book in one word. So I created the name, and some of the kids in the class might know names like pods, portable on demand storage, those little box
Hmm.
units on the
Yeah.
trucks. Zit, zit, zit. So that was one of the names that I created. They were used to be called portables and they sounded like toilets.
Yeah.
And everybody didn't want to order them. And the guy came
No.
to me and said, I have 70 of these boxes. Could you help me get to 100? And now they're worldwide. They're called pods
That's
portable.
incredible.
So yeah, I create one word stories. And but what I really like doing is just sparking imagination and helping create environments where kids and students and companies thrive. So if I can
Yeah.
give people the clarity, then they can just take that idea and run with it.
So great. I love how you have figured out how to best use your skills in
Yes.
multiple situations, and that takes creativity too.
Yeah, it does. A little bit, a little bit. Sleepless nights sometimes.
Perhaps going on that train of sleepless nights, also on your website, it said that you are a question asker and that as a kid,
Yeah.
you often ask, what if? Well, what if? What if? What if?
Yeah.
And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how questions are a great tool for authors. Going back to that garage
Yeah.
full of tools, how do you as an author use questions to help you write a story?
That is, see, and now you're getting at the heart of why I've taken on this mission to write this book and to speak to classes, is because what I'm concerned about most is guarding the sense of wonderment,
Mhm.
wonderment in kids. It's the most valuable thing I think they have. Because even Einstein said, he has a famous quote about imagination being more important than knowledge, and it's kind of misconstrued. Yeah, people say, "Oh, he didn't mean that." I think he absolutely meant it. And what he meant was he had an awareness that the known, what we know in school and what we learn and everything is important and it's good and it's proven and it's good that we memorize. But it's the known. What's much more expansive is what's yet to be known. So if we only focus on what we know, we'll have, it's like this. If all you knew was what was on your hard drive of your laptop, but you could never connect to the internet, you would probably think you knew a lot of stuff. It's on your
Mhm.
laptop, it's on your phone. Imagine if it never connected to the internet. So there is a vast world outside of that. That's why, as a kid, and I've never stopped, I would say, well, what if this? What if? What if Socrates said wisdom or wonderment, wonder is the beginning of wisdom. If you want to be wise, if you want to know, you have to inquire. To inquire is to ask, is that so? Is that true? So it's not about just memorization, it's about exploration.
Yeah. And your book does such a good job of that, taking us on this journey of exploration and asking all those what if questions and leaning into it rather than saying, no, thanks, I'm not up for an adventure
Yeah,
today. And so
yeah,
thank you. Thank you for this interview. Thank you for such a great
no
story. We will
problem.
be excited to read the second one when it comes out. I always close by asking authors what they're working on next and where readers can reach you if they have more questions.
Absolutely. So I have a website, PJ Davis. It stands for Philip John Davis. PJ Davis author at pjdavisauthor.com. And on that site, there's a little place where you can send me a message, or you can just sign my guest list, or just feel free to reach out and contact me anyway. I would love to hear from anybody that's read the book, and I'm really looking forward to story number two, which I myself don't know yet. I have my own questions.
Well, that is great. I will make sure that I put that link down in the video description box so they can easily find you there. Again, thank you so much for joining us, readers. Thank you for being here for another First Chapter Friday, and we will see you again next week.
All right.
Happy reading!
Thanks. Bye bye.
To continue reading Nemesis and the Vault of Lost Time, pick up a copy from your school library, purchase one from your favorite local indie bookstore, or grab it via the link in the video description box. Then be sure to stick around for the rest of the First Chapter Friday playlist. I've got so many great stories ready and waiting for you. Just search the playlist. I'll link it for you in the video description box below. This week's mystery quote says, "Fear's nothing. It's an illusion. You see it because you believe in it." Thanks so much for visiting my channel, Learning with the Word Nerd. I hope you come back again for more First Chapter Fridays, brain breaks, direct instruction videos, and more. Teachers, make sure you check the video description box for a link to a First Chapter Friday freebie, and I'll see you guys again next time. Happy reading!